Hi, when last we left off, oh, by the way, this is Michael Thayer, part 3 of my MLS comprehensive exam. When last we left off, we were talking about academic language and thinking routines. So, specifically, we were talking about a video in which a social studies teacher was using art to teach social studies, and one of the really neat things that he did was he basically showed a piece of artwork and had students write down for 60 seconds things that they saw without making any guesses about what it is they were looking at, just the raw visual details of what they were seeing. And that was the C part of the thinking routine. The next part of the routine was wonder. So for the next 60 seconds, the students write down and discuss with each other what questions did they have about that art. So what was it a sculpture of, or who was it supposed to be? So that was the second part. The third part is where they take the first two parts and put them together. So they take what they saw and they see if they can use that to answer the questions that they came up with as a group about what they were seeing. So that is one example of a thinking routine. Another of the videos that we have online and available to see some neat thinking routines is called the color investigation. And basically it shows a kindergarten teacher who uses student interests in different types of colors and painting and creates an entire project where the students create a restaurant and serve food to their families, and they create their own menu. And all of this began by listening to the students, observing what they needed to learn. So the students were having a hard time with color identification. Noticing the students' interests. One student was really interested in food all the time. So the teacher decided to have that student create a menu for the other students to have fake food using the plastic food in the classroom. And really creating synergizing experiences to learn and grow. So these things can all come from emphasizing thinking routines. So let's take a look, a step back rather, and think about the assumptions, evidence, limitations of the proposed solutions we have. So, first of all, next steps. How long, we wonder this when we see the evidence that we've seen so far. How long have test scores been flat at Midwest City School? For how long did my predecessor run professional development on test-taking skills and teaching standards? That's another good question that would have some repercussions on where we're at. Was it something that just was attempted for a few months? Did the predecessor, the principal at the school before me, did my predecessor run test-taking professional development for several years? So we really need also test scores that are differentiated between Hispanic and non-Hispanic students. This is one of the key missing pieces of evidence that I'm going to establish and find. I'm going to take our test scores that we have so far, and I'm going to separate them and see if we have, see what we see. If we take and make a graph that shows our test growth in math and ELA for non-Hispanic students, and then make a similar graph for Hispanic students. And we'll see what's going on. If it looks like the Hispanic students are substantially lower as a group, then that is a key indicator that yes, the growth of the Hispanic population is a key contributor to the flatlining of our growth on our school-wide growth on our standardized tests. Another thing that we need is the list of English learners in our school building with categorizations such as full English proficiency, limited English proficiency, and non-English proficient. That's going to make a big deal because just because someone is Hispanic does not mean that they have a language problem or a language challenge. Many students have tested out and tested as fully proficient in English, which means that they do not need the same types of support structures that we were talking about, the Freire model and so on, as students who are testing at non-English proficient, which means they have substantially lower proficiency in English. So let's see. We also need a little bit more surveying from our staff. We want to find out about the effectiveness of prior professional development on improving test scores. We've heard that that's something that was attempted, but we have not asked the staff their thoughts on it. Also, I want test score data for Sheridan's and Lee's students, the two teachers that I observed. I'd like to see if there's any correlation between how they teach and how their students perform on standardized tests. Also, we need to identify a starting point for cultures of thinking training. This would probably likely come from just conversations with staff to begin with. Some challenges that might await us. Securing staff buy-in. This seems to be something that has been a challenge. Some staff talking about pendulum swings in the school, about the school going one direction and then going the other direction with professional development and its culture. So we need to find ways of securing that staff buy-in. Time management. So this is something staff has identified. They need help with managing their time. They work very hard. And understanding how to get started in this process. So some reflection that I had, the students in some of the videos that we see in this research shows that they are obviously fluent already in the thinking routines. We don't see a lesson in any of the videos that we've seen. We don't see any initial lessons of how a thinking routine is taught. So that suggests that previous teachers have used these techniques. My goal will be to get all of my teachers to be teaching the same way using common thinking routines, which is very tricky because I truly value the autonomy that teachers bring and the fact that when teachers are passionate about something on their own and have that intrinsic motivation, they're going to be much better, much higher quality teachers than if they are following some sort of school top-down mandate. Another limitation of the social studies videos, what we're talking about, is that the viewer does not see the entire process of how students learn these thinking routines. I also have personal biases. I have experience working on a professional development committee, which means that I truly value the process of being on a professional development committee as a teacher, and now as an administrator, I've seen the value of that. So as an administrator, I want to continue professional development committees. I've also been an English learner coordinator, so I've seen that angle as well. I've also participated in multicultural education PD. I have been a Spanish teacher. I also initially began my teaching in the Peace Corps in Mozambique, so I have a global perspective on things that is just a natural way of who I am as a teacher. So let's review major points. First of all, flat test score growth data. Growing Hispanic population, EL strategies, we've gone over those. Student culture and classroom culture, the difference between the two. Current resources and district priorities, documenting student thinking growth. Conclusions based off of those. We need to get better at what we do as a school. We need to address multiple languages and cultures. We need to build cultures of thinking and document our students' thinking. The district does support our growth through their priorities, and we have resources that are needed for us to grow. So the solutions that I have, we need to form a PD committee. I'm going to form a PD committee. I'm going to analyze multiple sources of data with my PD committee. We're going to synthesize observations into 3 to 5 PD foci. And then we're going to design goal-oriented PD for the coming school year and years. As we've discussed, this is not going to be a one-year process. PD is really an ongoing multi-year process. And a few take-home messages. Data analysis reveals our needs. This is one of the most important and strongest part of what we're going to be doing at my school, is that we're basing our decisions on data. This is not simply a trend, something read in a popular source of information, a new thing that I, as a principal, have done before, but it's also based off of data. There's tons of research. We've only seen the iceberg of the research related to helping English learners and helping create a more multicultural environment. Also, the teachers at my school need to be brought into the planning process at the ground level. This is absolutely essential. If I'm going to really earn their trust as an educational leader, I need to make sure that they are involved in everything that I've learned and how I've gotten to where I am with my thinking on our needs. I'd like to guide them through that same process that I took. And I really hoped to do this in this presentation, so I hope that came across. Finally, let's just say that culture matters, be it student, classroom, or school. So the culture that a student comes from is important in terms of the school needs to recognize that culture. We need to understand it. We need to know our students on individual levels, not only in a singular way in which we know all students, but we need to figure out how to speak the language of each student, whether that's an actual different language, or whether it's just the way that students are in terms of their home life, the way they interact with people, because that's the way that we're going to teach each of our students. And not only understanding our students, that's important, that's absolutely important, but one of the things that all effective schools need to do is to have a really strong, unified school culture, which means that the teachers each have their unique strengths that they bring to the board, and they are also unified with each other on certain ways of philosophies of thinking and of school vision and school mission, because otherwise we're going in all different directions. Okay, but if all of us are kind of working in the same direction, then our students are going to be educated properly and we're going to have more success with them. And ultimately, I think that that's going to translate into higher test scores in the end. And that's basically it. So I hope you have enjoyed looking at our needs as a school and where we're going with Midwest City School. I'm very confident about our growth and the things that await us in the future. I'm excited to get the PD committee off the ground and rolling and to start just talking to teachers, making plans for how we're going to assess our needs, looking at the research which we'll be able to see in this document and other documentation, and having conversations about where we should go and how we're going to get there. And really just digging deep into the importance of reaching each of our kids and achieving the goals that the data has revealed and that we've all agreed upon and that we're all behind. So it's been great having you this evening. Right now I'm going to go ahead and just shuffle through my resources real quick so that you can see those. But if you would like to go ahead and head out now, you can. Otherwise, let's take a quick look at our resources. Okay. And that's it. Have a great night.